Hi again guys, and welcome to the 30th place pick. We're really shifting up the list of my top 50 favourite vehicles now, and this is one which pretty much always appears in my list somewhere, but it does move around quite a bit, and I've noticed in more recent times for me personally, although I do still love the car a lot, it's one of my favourite American cars, especially of more modern times, and as far as American supercars go, there are very few which I like more than this one. To me, it's pretty much still the pinnacle, actually, of American supercars. I know a lot of people would say that that's the Ford GT, especially the newer one, and in terms of performance, of course, the SSC Ultimate Aero is a very difficult one to beat. The Hennessy Venom is extremely fast, but kind of controversial. Some people don't like it as much because of the Lotus styling, which is a misconception, of course, which we've discussed before. This car, though, this is a car which pretty much anyone can get behind, and to some degree, even if you're not a fan of traditional American cars, you can still appreciate the Saleen S7, because in many ways it's kind of like a European supercar. It's got this long-tail design, which is very clearly inspired by the Group C era in the Le Mans, and you guys know how I feel about long-tail race cars and Group C cars in general. I love them, it's my single favourite class of racing. And any road car that can legitimately pull off looking like that, because if you think about it, there aren't many which actually could. If you imagine, for instance, a Koenigsegg with that kind of back end, it wouldn't really look right. Even something like a Zonda, which is inspired by a Group C car, the Mercedes Sauber C11, even that, it wouldn't look right if it was a long tail. Generally speaking, the road cars that have long tails were long tails to begin with, something like the Door 962 road car, or the Koenig C62, or the Chopin 962 CR, and more commonly than not, they are based on Porsches, specifically the 962, and they're often named such. Then you get some which kind of move sort of into that territory, but not fully, like the Toyota GT1 road car, which kind of has a long tail, but not really. So in terms of actual unique ground-up creations, there are actually very few supercars which have a true long tail, but the Saleen S7 is one of them, and it gives it one of the most distinctive shapes of the supercar world, and many times that I've spoken about this car on the channel, and also just to other petrol heads in the real world as well, I've mentioned that I believe it is the finest American supercar ever made, because if you think about it, most American supercars, they tend to be very good at one particular thing, but not necessarily quite as good at others. For instance, if you think of, I would say, America's best track-going supercar, the Mosler MT900, that car is fantastic around a track, but it's not a straight-line machine. It can be made into one with the Red Devil version, which is insanely powerful. I'm not sure if that one was ever actually built or proven, though. Supposed to have 1800 horsepower, but I don't think they actually built it to that level, or at least tested it. But either way, it's not known for that, it's known for its cornering. Then you've got something like a Ford GT, which is very good, and it can be made fast in a straight line, but again, that's not what it's known for. The Ford GT is more of an all-rounder. Then you've got something like the Hennessy, or the SSC, which of course is a straight line machine, first and foremost, very challenging around corners. But then you've got the Saleen S7, and with the others, they generally have one good point above all others, be it cornering or straight line speed, or you have to significantly modify them to make them better. For instance, the Ford GT has to be modified to be crazy fast in a straight line. The Mosler had to be modified to make it faster. It wasn't just a factory-made model, it was a speciality version of it. The Saleen is different, because with the Saleen S7, it's fantastic through corners, to the point where it's a very competitive race car with very dominant histories behind it, and each of the teams who ran them. But also on the road, it has fantastic top-end speed, acceleration, handling, and even with all of the different variants of the Saleen S7, it just gets quicker and quicker. Now, my personal favourite version, and this is not unusual for me, is the standard one. I like the normal 550 horsepower Saleen S7 the most. And as I said, that's not uncommon for me. As we've already looked at through the series, the Aston Martin Rapide I prefer over the Rapide S. Or, as I've alluded to in the past, my favourite Koenigsegg is the slowest one, the CC8S, the original shape. And often the reason why I like that one more is actually twofold. One, the visual design is usually more pure and less cluttered. And that's certainly the case with the Saleen S7. If you compare it to the look of the twin turbo has the bigger diffuser, the chin splitter. It just looks a little bit unnecessary to me, whereas this one's just the pure essence of its design. And then the power, again, for me, that's unnecessary, because I enjoy a car regardless of if it's the fastest version. For instance, the Zonda F is my favourite Zonda, but it's no way near the fastest. Even the Cinque can relatively easily outdo it. But that's not the point for me. And this car, according to some quotes, and I think it probably varies based on who tests the car and who quotes it, but the quoted speed and the quoted performance on a Saleen S7 is basically McLaren F1 level. The top speed is supposed to be around 240 miles per hour with a 0 to 60 time of about 3.3 seconds. Now, the acceleration I would be very inclined to believe, because it's relatively lightweight. It's something like 1,250, 1,300 kilos, and it's got that 7-litre, 550 horsepower V8 with the mid-engine rear-wheel drive. It's very aerodynamically efficient in terms of stability and just how slick it is. But again, 550 horsepower cars can do that kind of speed sometimes. Not necessarily 240, but even if you look at something like the Jaguar XJ220, that has less than 550 horsepower and it can do 220 miles per hour. So it's not unheard of for a car with significantly less power than a supercar would usually have to be able to go that fast. Now, 240 might be a push. I would probably be more inclined to believe that the standard S7 could maybe do 225, possibly 230. 240 seems to be a little bit optimistic, but it wouldn't surprise me if it could at the same time, because it's certainly got a lot of thought put into it. I love the look of the car. It's one of those supercars which, regardless of whether you're in the States or anywhere else in the world really, it's the kind of car that you would want to show up to an event in, because it's got so much presence. It's a truly dominant-looking car, but at the same time, one which is very pretty. It's a good-looking shape, and it manages to do the very challenging thing, which not many supercars do, of being truly unique to look at. There is nothing else which looks quite like a Saleen S7 unless they are straight-up copying the Saleen S7. And I love that. I think it's a great supercar, one of the best that America has ever built. It's up there with the Mosler and the Ultima Aero for sure in terms of how iconic it is for America, and I love it. It does vary quite a lot for me as far as where it is on the list. In the past, it's been one of my dream cars, but for now, I'd say it's more one of my favourites rather than one which I would actually buy. But that's it for this pick. Of course, if you are new to this countdown, you can check out all of the other episodes by clicking through at the end. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.